Every day, more than 1 billion people set a plant on fire and breathe it in. You already know it's killing them. So here's the strange part. Humans have been doing this for over 12,000 years. Longer than we've had writing. Longer than farming across most of the world. Longer than any city, any empire, any religion you have ever heard of. And they didn't start because it felt good. The first humans to breathe smoke on purpose weren't trying to relax. They thought they were touching another world. The real reason we smoke is far stranger than a bad habit. It's a story about fire, about spirits, and about a plant that learned to control brains long before it ever reached ours. Start with the obvious question. Why would any creature choose to inhale smoke? Smoke is your body's enemy. Breathe it in, and your lungs burn, and your throat fights to push it back out. Every instinct screams at you to get away from it. And yet our species has a very strange relationship with smoke, because for nearly 1 million years, we chose to sit right next to it. Somewhere around 1 million years ago, our ancestors were already using fire. Deep in Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, scientists found ash and burnt bone from roughly that time. From that moment on, humans lived inside a haze of wood smoke. We cooked in it, slept beside it, and huddled in it against the dark. Smoke was not a danger we ran from. It was the smell of warmth, of food, of safety. Our bodies even adapted to it. We tolerate smoke far better than almost any other animal. So the leap from sitting in smoke to breathing it on purpose was smaller than it sounds. And at some point, people noticed something. Not all smoke is the same. Burn the right plant, and your mind changes. High in the mountains of western China, archaeologists opened a cemetery about 2,500 years old. Inside, they found wooden braziers still holding burnt cannabis, and the chemistry showed it was unusually rich in the compound that alters the mind. These people were not cooking. They were burning a plant to change how they felt at a funeral. To the ancient world, smoke was not a habit. It was a doorway. Rising smoke looked like it carried something upward, up to the sky, to the dead, to the gods. But one plant would eventually beat them all. On the other side of the planet, across the Americas, grew a humble weed called tobacco, and humans found it astonishingly early. At a site in the Utah desert, archaeologists uncovered charred tobacco seeds in the remains of an ancient fireplace. They were 12,300 years old. These were some of the very first people in the Americas, and they already had tobacco. Over the following thousands of years, it spread across 2 whole continents. People smoked it, chewed it, drank it, and even blew it into wounds as medicine. The Maya spoke of drinking smoke and offered it to their gods. Tobacco was not a product, it was sacred. Which brings us to the real question. Of all the plants on Earth, why did this one take over the world? The answer is not hiding in human culture, it's hiding inside the plant. Tobacco makes a chemical called nicotine, but it never made it for us. Nicotine is a pesticide. The plant floods its leaves with it to poison the insects that try to eat them. A large enough dose can stop a heart. It is one of the most effective natural insecticides ever discovered. And here is the twist that quietly rewrote human history. The same molecule that kills a caterpillar fits almost perfectly into the human brain. Your brain is covered in tiny locks called receptors. Nicotine happens to be shaped like a perfect key for one of those locks. When it locks in, your brain releases a small flood of dopamine. That is the chemical of reward. For a few seconds, the world feels sharper and somehow calmer. Then it fades, and your brain quietly asks for more. That is not relaxation. That is a plant's poison operating your nervous system. The tobacco plant evolved a weapon to defend itself, and that weapon turned out to be a near-perfect tool for capturing the one animal that could carry it everywhere. So look at what actually happened here. We did not invent smoking because it was fun. We were already a species living inside smoke. We found plants that could bend the mind, and we called it holy. And one of those plants carried a chemical that hijacks the exact circuit that makes us come back. Nobody really chose this. In a way, the plant chose us. It offered a feeling, took a piece of the brain in return, and used us as its legs. Tobacco is now grown on every inhabited continent on the planet. From the plant's point of view, addiction was never a side effect. It was the single most successful survival strategy in the history of plants. And the strangest part is how recent the real danger is. For almost all of human history, smoke was rare, sacred, and occasional. Then, a little over a century ago, we learned to roll it into a cheap paper tube and sell it by the billion. We took a dangerous, holy ritual and turned it into a daily reflex. The plant's ancient trick had finally met the modern factory, and the result became the deadliest habit our species has ever known. We like to believe we are the ones in control, the clever animal that tamed fire and bent nature to its will. But every time someone lights a cigarette, a much older story is playing out. A plant's chemical defense, whispering to a brain that was listening 1,000,000 years before the first cigarette existed. We did not start smoking because we were foolish. We started because we were human. A creature born beside the fire, reaching for the sky. And a quiet green plant was waiting there, holding exactly the right key. Before you go, we put a lot of work into these videos, so if this one was worth your time, a quick like genuinely helps us out. And if you don't want to miss the next one, consider subscribing. We'd also love to hear what you think. Leave a comment with your thoughts or an idea for a future video. We try to read every single one. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.